want to start off by, acknowledging, a legend passing in the game, and always sad to see somebody leave that made so much to our sport. And John Robinson, want to recognize him. Obviously, legendary coach, but got to start right here with the Ducks. And I'm thinking about him and his family. Our entire organization are tonight. Also, want to acknowledge, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that it is Veterans Day, and how grateful we are for the people that serve this country. And with that being said, exciting weekend for the Ducks. Basketball off to a hot start. Did really well this weekend, and obviously our football game. We learned a lot of great things from that. But we can open it up to talk about Wisconsin.
You're on right, Zach.
You know what it's like to take over a program and get your guys in the system, establish a culture. What do you think about what Luke Fickell's done at Wisconsin over the past 2 years?
Yeah, I think Coach Fickell's a great coach. We actually got to play against him when I was at Georgia, and he was at Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl, and he had a really, really good team there. I think he's proven that he can develop teams. We came down to a field goal barely to be able to win it, and it speaks just to the kind of culture he can create. And you see pieces of that coming together for him now at Wisconsin, and I think he's doing a good job.
Left side, Eric.
Just your thoughts on Locke and how he's settled in. Obviously, kind of a tough spot to replace a guy who was knocked out for the season. But what have you seen from him so far?
Yeah, has the ability, to make you hurt. I mean, he's a good football player, and it's all based on opportunities and what that looks like. But certainly has that ability.
Back right here.
Wisconsin's offensive line, I think, started the season with the most experience. Just what makes that unit specifically really effective in helping out the quarterback and their run game?
Yeah, I mean, they're big, right? It's one of those ones where you look at them and you say, okay, that's what an offensive line is supposed to look at. They have great size up front. I think they have the ability to move you, but when you look at it, you're like, okay, that's what a Wisconsin offensive line looks like.
Front left, James.
Their top corner was really productive a year ago, and now basically is going unchallenged for all intents and purposes. Just why have teams steered away so much from him, and how confident are you in the ability to test him when it seems like nobody's willing to?
Yeah, I think that's probably smart, right? As a football coach, not to throw to a guy that's going to make a lot of plays in the ball. I mean, how many picks did he have last year? 7. The guy had 7 picks last year, and why not throw the other direction? That makes a little bit of sense. That being said, I think it's much more challenging for a defense whenever you can work the entire field. But there's a reason people are testing him, because he's a talented player.
Back right, Brett.
Coach, you've obviously had the chance to take a look at the film just in regards to the penalties. What did you see in the game? Were some of them warranted, specifically some of the PIs, and just how did the group kind of respond today at practice?
They responded well. And yes, some of them were warranted, for sure. And I wouldn't say that there was like egregious ones that were missed. There's reasons, so we can improve in our technique. There's execution that we can do better. And, again, on Wednesday last week, we had some in practice. So that usually shows up in the game. So we have to do a good job of addressing it and making sure we eliminate them.
Left, Eric.
Their safety tandem, I think, is probably one of the better ones you'll face. Can
No
you
doubt.
speak to what those guys do and what kind of challenges they present?
Well, they're good tacklers. They do a great job disguising coverage, and they have some good mix-ups there. But, yeah, I think this is one of the more talented secondaries that we've seen. I think they play really well together, understand how to make, handle adjustments, which I think is always important in football. You see that show up with them.
On the right, here, Zach.
The running back, number 3, has been very productive this year. What have you seen from him, and does he kind of remind you of anyone that you guys have gone against so far this year?
I don't know if he reminds of anyone, but, I mean, he just plays with a level of toughness and effort. I mean, I think those things show up on film. How hard you play, I think, speaks to, how much you appreciate your teammates, and, that certainly shows up with those guys.
Front left, James.
With a chance to review how Dave and Kavika did at right guard, just did one do better than the other? Just want to have the edge in terms of starting going forward, or what was your assessment of those?
I think they both had different strengths and weaknesses within the game. Both, I think, played winning football, where you have the ability to have success with them on the field, which is great to see them prove that. And I think both earn the opportunity to be able to see what that looks like in the future.
Back right, Eric.
Talk about going to the doctor every week. Now that you've got a chance to look at the film from this week, just maybe what were some big pills that you saw on film, both maybe offensively and defensively, that you got to swallow this week and get better at?
Yeah, I won't get into like great specifics, but I think just technique and this part of the season, a lot of places you'll trim down and eliminate, individual time to work on fundamentals and technique. And the reality is this is when it matters the most, right? So we have to be fundamentally sound in scheme, but just as important, how you disengage off a block matters, how you play slot cover matters, right? How you tackle matters. And I think some of those things showed up for us that we could do better.
On the left, Eric.
Kind of an unusual situation where the punter drops the ball. What could Dalen have done different? How do you instruct that? What kind of was the message to those guys?
Yeah, I mean, when they're in the pocket, which is the question there, is like, is he in the pocket? They're protected, right? So we've actually shown a clip before. A couple years ago, Missouri-Auburn play, the ball snapped over the head. The ball's picked up and kicked, and the guy's still within the tackle box, so he's protected. And the guy hits the punter. It's a very similar situation we've shown. It's one of those ones that you talk about, but I don't know that we emphasize that enough as coaches. But ultimately, you say go for the ball in that situation. Dalen's close enough to make a play. Coaching point is to go for the ball. Could understand his confusion in that moment, and if he's just a foot left, we're probably not even talking about it, and it looks like a completely different play.
All right, Zach.
We saw Tez without a sling before the game on Saturday, a week or so after the recovery. Just curious how that's progressing.
Yeah, I think he's doing well. Continue to evaluate where he's at, for us, but doing well.
Front left, James.
An update on Jordan Birch and the right ankle, and also Jordan James, since limited exposure there in the second half.
Yeah, continue to evaluate, get those guys back. Right now, early in the week, we'll take a lot off of them, and then see, how they feel. But I anticipate that we should be able to see them.
Back right, Rick.
Coach, do you feel like there are any particular holes within this Wisconsin unit that you guys can kind of expose or take advantage of this weekend that you guys are looking at right now?
You want me to tell you our game plan is what you're saying?
Game plan, no, just any-
Like, hey, this is how we're going to attack them? I'm not telling you that.
Front left, James.
Seems like the directional kickoffs are rather problematic regardless of who it is. Just when both Boyle and Sappington have shown an ability for touchbacks at the rate that they do, why even bother with the directional kickoffs at this point?
I think the one we kicked out of bounds was deep left kick. When we kicked it deep right, it was a touchback.
But there was also been, I believe, 4 or 6 out of bounds on the season. So just
And which ones were deep right that were out of bounds?
they were mainly deep left, yeah.
So we kick it deep left every time.
No.
And then a couple of them went out of bounds left. And then we kick it deep right and we got a touchback. So don't kick it out of bounds. Yeah. We're not telling them to kick it out of bounds. We're telling them to kick it deep left. Like they're supposed to, and it's supposed to be the same location every time. Deep left. They're not kicking it to that location. Crappy kick.
Last question, James.
On a happier note, you're at the end of this 8-week gauntlet that no other team in the country has had to do. Dan, how do you feel at approaching the end of it, that you are experiencing and doing something heading into a final road trip with this, that, yeah, you're the number 1 team in the country and no other team has had to play 8 straight weeks of conference play?
Yeah, job not done, right? Our guys are enjoying the work. We're still having a lot of fun coming up every single day to get better and find ways to improve. And the challenge of this new conference and the travel and some of the teams that we got to play has been a lot of fun for us. But we got more work to do.